Everybody, we are here with Jack Fessenden, and he is the filmmaker behind a new film called Foxhole. And yeah, this is a pretty interesting film. Jack, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm,
Thanks
I'm
for having me, by the way. It's
Thank you
not
for
exactly a horror film, but there is some tension indeed that maybe
there's
might
definitely
feel horrendous.
tension.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. There's
Horrific.
tension, but then you have a tie to horror yourself,
I certainly do, yeah.
so there's that. But can you tell us about the film Foxhole?
Yeah, I will. So Foxhole is a three-part war movie that takes place in the American Civil War, World War I, and in a Humvee in Iraq, which is your background. And
Her?
it's yeah. And it basically follows the same five characters and transplants them into these different time periods. It's not a sci-fi film. It's just an examination of how the dynamics within this insular group of American soldiers has changed, the racial dynamics, the gender dynamics she's introduced in Iraq, this female soldier, Gail. And so it was very much a structural conceit for me originally, and I was interested in the looks that I could get out of three different time periods and all the little details and the period accuracy. So that was what I came to the movie with a love of war movies and of history, and I wanted to tell this story. Yeah.
It sounds like as much an exploration of storytelling and techniques and the tools of film for storytelling as much as anything. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, I mean, as early as this idea came to me. It was inspired by this true story that I heard shortly after my grandfather passed away when I was 14 or so. He had
Mhm.
served in World War II, and his comrade there, named Morton, was sheltering in a foxhole one night in during Battle of the Bulge, during artillery fire, and a German soldier hopped into the hole. And instead of drawing their weapons, they ended up speaking, and they had a lot in common. The Germans spoke perfect English, and then at dawn they spent the whole night sheltering in this hole together. And then at dawn they parted ways. And then many years later, in the United States, the American soldier is milling about his hometown in upstate New York, and he senses a guy following him, and he turns to confront him. And it's the German dressed in a tall black suit. And there he is. And he says, "Do you remember me?" And he says, "Of course." And the two guys remained friends for the entire lives. And so I heard that story and I just had to make that into a movie. Ironically, it's the most unlikely seeming part of Foxhole, and it's the only part that is true. So that was the seed that inspired it. And then I thought, well, I could do this type of story three different ways and three different time periods. Because if I was going to make a war movie, I just couldn't decide on one war because they're also interesting to me. And also visually, the approach was to create three distinct looks. So the cinematography was definitely on my mind early on. Um,
Yeah,
it's certainly a decision for black and white. Yeah.
you definitely got the the aesthetics of each little period right.
Hmm.
But it's almost like you kind of just looked at the menu and was like, yeah, I'll take it. Um,
Yeah.
how am I going to
Yeah.
do this? Sure. Um, okay, so this was a student film though. Yeah,
No, no, not at all. This was
I
this
thought
was not done.
I
I
thought
mean,
it
I
was
was a
done.
student at the time. I shot it. I wrote it in high school,
Okay.
and during my first year of college, and then we shot it the summer after my first year at college, and now I'm graduating college on Sunday, so
Oh,
I've come to
congrats.
the end of my road here. But yeah, the film was made during my years as a student, but it was unaffiliated with any kind of student organizations. It was, yeah, independent.
So while made as a student, it wasn't a student film.
Yeah.
But yeah, dang, because
That's
you
not what some of the reviews think though.
yeah. Well, we have to clarify. We like
Yeah.
accuracy, but it's like, I mean, how did you make a film and go through full-time school and now, I mean, and it be successful enough to be distributed?
Yeah, I don't know. I've been getting that question since I was quite young because I guess it seems to me that I've been making movies and doing it seriously since I was like 13. I started making more serious short films after having just before that I just played around with cameras with my friends and my dad and my mom. My dad is a horror filmmaker, as you know, and my mom is a stop motion animator, and so
Mhm.
that was the energy was in the household, and I was always wrapped up in that, spending time on sets as a kid and everything. but then I started taking filmmaking more seriously in my teens, and I had shorts that would play at festivals, particularly the Woodstock Film Festival upstate, where this
Hmm.
premiered, the U.S. premiere of Foxhole. And then I made my first feature when I was 15 and 16, called Stray Bullets, because we just put together a small crew and just kind of used the usual players, my friends, some Glass Eye Pix people, and I acted in it alongside my other friend, and we put together that feature. And then I guess I got the fix, and then when it came time to make another one, Foxhole presented itself. Um, and yeah, how did I manage the time? I don't know. It seems like, movies are so spread out, that you can kind of manage it because it takes so long to do it,
Yeah,
that apart from the shoot, there really is no period of time in which I'm completely engulfed in just the movie. Apart from during the beginning of quarantine, which is the period in which I composed the score,
hmm
that was really valuable time for me because I don't know how I would have done that otherwise. Honestly, it's so sprawling, so much more ambitious the score than anything I had done before.
would you say that that was uh, one of the more challenging aspects of creating the whole film, or?
Yeah, I think so. It came at a hard time for all of us, but I think I benefited from having that solitude and that focus during the early pandemic. But it was hard in the sense that I had never composed anything orchestral, which this score does have, and so I needed help with certain orchestrations and like notation and that kind of thing. Um, but the hardest part, I think, with this film is just the endurance. It took 5 years to make, and I think, having to rediscover my attachment to the project at different periods, because it reflects many different versions of myself. I wrote it when I was 16, 17, or at least that's when I conceived of it, and it hasn't really changed. The soul of the movies remain the same.
Hmm.
And then, I composed the score when I was 20 or so, 20. And that was sort of, I was able to reclaim, or resink my teeth into the project, and put a final stamp on it, which felt more contemporary to my age. And then here I am, 22, and now finally people can watch it.
You're an old man.
Yeah, it takes a
Um,
long time.
okay, so the tie with horror obviously is your father
Yeah.
and his work in film and the horror industry. Um, and I mean, he's a horror icon, so it's like, what is it that he maybe contributed to the project? How did he teach you anything that assisted
Yeah.
you on your journey as a filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, it's our tastes are so aligned. We'll constantly be noticing this, like where we have the same thing to say about a movie or this or that, and it's just because I grew up with he just taught me everything there is to know about filmmaking. Like that, he taught me everything he knew about it, just through doing it together. Not even like this is how it is, but we just did it together so much. It started as a form of play when I was a kid, and then it just grew and grew. And I guess he saw that I was ambitious and taking it seriously, and he liked the scripts I was making enough to sort of, he mentors younger filmmakers like Ty West, who's now
Hmm.
making X, but that all started at Glass Eye Pix with, he was an intern and then first feature there, and so I guess I am sort of one of the new young Glass Eye Pix filmmakers that he's bringing out, from the shadows. And it isn't always horror, and so like there's people like Kelly Reichardt, back in the '90s wasn't horror, and
Right, right.
other people that he's produced. And so, yeah, I mean, he's my producer. He's my closest creative partner, and we share everything. And
I love
it's
that.
very valuable. I love it so much. Sometimes we have to remind each other that he's my dad, and so sometimes we'll like go get Chinese food and just talk about something else. But it's pretty much what we do in the house, and so yeah,
That's awesome. That is,
yeah.
yeah, that's super cool. Um, and yeah, so where can people see Foxhole?
Foxhole it's still in theaters. If you're in New York, it's at the IFC, for another day or two. I think tomorrow will be its last day. I'm not positive. And then if you're in LA, it's at the Lemley Glendale, for another day or two. And then if you happen to be in Dayton, Ohio, it's playing at the Neon there, We had a special screening that got carried over because it was a full house, so they like it in Dayton.
Wow.
And then it'll be coming to Tinker Street in Woodstock, upstate New York. But it's also on no, it's not. It's on Apple TV and Vudu for now,
Well
and then it'll be
then,
on other streaming services soon.
so then everybody, if you're not in Dayton, Ohio, you know
Yeah.
where to find it for streaming. So there you go. But Jack, thank you so much for taking the time to
Oh
talk
yeah,
film, to talk about your dad, and yeah, let's. I'd love to hear from you when you have your next project.
absolutely. I'm starting now.
Oh,
So
any hints? Any hints or no?
I don't think so. I gotta
Ah,
figure out my hints first.
all
Yeah.
right, all right, all right. Well, Jack, best of luck on this release and the one that you won't tell us about, and and everybody check out Foxhole because Jack worked hard on it, and it's a good movie. All
Thank you
right,
so much, Norman.
thanks,
Good to
Jack.
talk to you.